If you've got bugs on your project and you have bugs on your project, then you're going to want some way to keep track of the current state of those bugs. One of those ways is a bug board. So let's build a bug board. To start with, you could just do this. Just show the total number of open bugs on a project. And in a lot of cases, this might be enough. I have certainly thought about buying an LED board and just having it sitting in the hallway with an updating count of the total number of bugs on a project. It's nice and simple. It's a single number. It's easy to keep track of. And in some cases, this is all you want. But we can go further. You might as well show the delta of bugs, showing if that number has gone up or gone down and by how much. And as long as you're doing this, why not use the opportunity to add a little bit of color coding and provide a little bit more visual emphasis on what's going on the bugs. But additionally, there's more information here as well. The total number of resolves is actually really important. Typically, about 10% of these bugs are going to fail. So if your number of resolved but not closed bugs gets out of control, it's hiding a large number of potential bugs from the rest of the project. So it's good to keep track of this number as well. Not as important as resolved and opened, but still interesting to see is total number of closed. So this is the total number of bugs that have been filed, resolved, and closed. They may not have been fixed, but they've been closed through some means. This isn't as important as the other two, as I said, but something that people are going to be very interested about on your project. So as long as you're providing the other two numbers, you might as well provide this one as well. And what you have here is something that is a useful and simple snapshot of your project. It's essentially a ticker of what's going on. This is something that you could use if you're keeping track of several projects or if you want to show a very fast overview of what's going on. But chances are what you're going to actually be using your bug board for is to go on televisions mounted in the hallways and in the lunchroom. So in that case, you've got a whole television to work with. So you have an opportunity to go further. You can add the traffic on your project showing how many bugs on a day-to-day basis are created, resolved, closed, reopened. That's a bug that was in a closed state that has reoccurred and failed, because now you're starting to get that sense. The music is playing. You're starting to feel the overall direction of the project. You got a lot of room left. Well, first of all, it's probably a good idea to put the name of your project up there. You might have several projects on the go, and it doesn't hurt to remind people of what project they're working on. Also an opportunity to show off your cool word form. And then you can break the bugs down further by showing it broken down by discipline. People are going to zoom in on their specific discipline to see what's going on for things that they're paying attention to. Now note, this is discipline, not department. And I'm going to call it one specific thing. This here is the number of unassigned bugs. Bugs that are not assigned to any discipline. That is a red flag. This number should always be red, in my opinion, because no matter how many bugs you have on the unassigned list, even if it's gone down massively, any number is a bad number, because if they're unassigned, that means they're not on anybody. And bugs that are not on anybody aren't getting fixed. You want them to at least be sitting on a discipline. Even if you have a discipline holding bucket, you should have that. So at least you know these bugs belong to combat if you don't know specifically the person there. And note, I say this as someone who hates imaginary people holding bugs on a project. But now we're getting into the ability to start to sense what's going on with the project overall. So pushing it even further, adding the priority and severity allows you to see the scope and scale of the bugs that are sitting on the project. Because if you have tons and tons of urgent and critical bugs, that project is in a much more dire state than if all you have are low and polished bugs, which potentially could be triaged away if you needed to ship. Again, like the unassigned bucket, these nones are an indication of a problem. This means you have a bug that has no priority or no severity. In fact, those two priorities should only appear on your bug board if you have bugs in there. So they should normally be invisible, because there should be no bugs with no priority and no bugs with no severity. If you keep your bugs well groomed, then that's going to give you a better sense of what's going on in the project, and it's going to keep those two items blank. The other thing that's really important is that you need to make sure that this list, all of your priorities, and this list, all of your severities, add up to the same number. And that number that they add up to should be this number, the total. You actually also want the entire list of bugs on the discipline list to add up the same thing. But because there are a lot more disciplines than there are priorities and severities, people aren't going to as typically do the math on that. They will do the math on the priority list and the severity list and realize that things are off, they don't add up. And that's just a bit of noise in your project that you don't need to deal with. Just make sure the math works out, because if it doesn't, it means something's wrong with your query and you need to fix that. And you're going to distract people with a bit of meaningless data. So one final thing, one final bit of harmony that helps you feel and hear what's going on with the project is to cut the bugs by one different direction, which is by department. This is going to let you see what's going on based on the expertise and background of the person working on it. And often programming bugs take a lot longer to fix than art bugs. So again, it gives you another piece of information, because ultimately, what you as a leader on your project are going to be doing is looking at information like this to try to glean where the project is and what's going on. And with experience, you start to be able to hear those patterns, feel that movement and shift of the project as it moves through its paces, and understand where you are and where you're going. One quick thing on this, you'll notice that we actually have some disciplines and some departments that have the same name, but they don't necessarily match up in terms of total number of bugs. And that's because department is based entirely on the work that the person does, the kind of work. Discipline is based upon the feature set as a whole. Audio would include your audio engineers, the people putting audio into your game. Audio as a discipline, on the other hand, is going to include everyone associated with audio as a feature. So it includes those audio engineers, but it also includes programmers working on your audio systems. It might include people that are working from a production perspective in the audio department as well. Additionally, you might actually have audio engineers embedded in one of the other disciplines, embedded with your combat animation or your level design, in which case those audio engineers would still show up in the audio department, but wouldn't show up in the audio discipline. So those two things won't always match up. That's okay. Worth considering maybe renaming one of them, because it is a little bit of confusion, much like the numbers all adding up. That may not be worth the trouble if you can come up with a name to keep them distinct from each other. So there you have it. That's a bug board. But there's one last piece of information that's probably worth adding. You know when you're supposed to go into certification. It's worth communicating this information to the team as they walk by these boards in the hallway, so that they know when things need to be done. And because your certification date is not the same as your street date, it's easy for them to forget when that is. That's the date that matters from the perspective of all hands off, nothing goes in. So that's the date you should use. So that's our bug boards. I find them very useful. Team members find them very useful because it allows them to see what's going on with their own work, but also the work of people around them. I think with something like this, it's still very consumable and provides information to a lot of different parties for a lot of different purposes. You can go with a simpler bug board if you want something that is consumable by your executive group. You might want to go all the way down to just open and resolved. But for the team as a whole and for the leadership of that team, this higher level of information provides data that's useful in devs doing their jobs day to day and leaders making decisions about the direction of the project in order to make the best game possible. I would like to give a special thanks to my members. They help keep this channel running. If you are interested in becoming a member of this channel, there's a link down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, if it provided you something to think about, please give it a thumbs up so other people can see it. Share it with someone else that might find it useful. Share your stories of bug boards from your projects down in the comments. I will see you again soon. Thank you.